Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to our participants from Nigeria and West Africa. Good afternoon to our colleagues from Kenya, East Africa, and Southern Africa. And good evening to our participants from India, China, and Pakistan. And Kadri, I will say good morning to you from Canada because you are
good morning to you.
Good morning. So it's a pleasure for me to welcome you to this webinar. And this webinar on risk management, disaster recovery, and business continuity plan for MFIs in Africa is one of the series that have been put together by the School of African Microfinance, Kenya. Interestingly, many of the participants in class are our past students, and many are potential students. Majority of us are actually in the business of microfinance. This morning, we shall be talking about the impact of COVID-19 on microfinance in Africa. Then we shall be talking about opportunities and challenges for financial institutions, and how do we position our clients how do we position ourselves for the needs of our clients. My name is Dr. Steve Ogidon. I'm the course director, and I'm speaking to you from Nigeria. We have lined up a very good team for us today, and Sam presents one of the best teams in microfinance in Africa. And we, on the panel today, we have Kadri Furani, the Vice President of CARE Canada, Vice President International Operations, and he is our lead faculty on reporting financial analysis and performance for MFIs. Welcome, Kadri.
Hi, everybody. I'm Egyptian, by the way.
Good morning. Yes, I've forgotten your African origin. Kadri is actually Egyptian, and so he's an African. So, but he lives in Canada. Then also on the team today, we have Rose Nwaniki. Rose is our microfinance and rural finance specialist and lead faculty on delinquency management. Rose, you are welcome. Good morning. I think we've not muted her. Yes, Rose, good morning.
Good afternoon.
Oh, okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon from Kenya.
Yes, good afternoon, yes.
Thank you. A very important faculty member that will be leading our conversation today is Anne Kimari. Anne is the managing consultant, Fine Bridge Associate Limited of Kenya, and is our lead faculty on risk management. And you know, everything we'll be talking about today is related to risk. We woke up suddenly, we had COVID-19 in our hand. Nobody prepared for it. And unfortunately, it is happening to everybody at the same time. Anne,
yes.
You are welcome.
Yes. Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Welcome to the seminar.
Thank you very much, Anne. And the last but not the least in the list of our panelists today is my sister, Pauline Ngari. Pauline is the founder and CEO of Youth Talent and Enterprise Development Center in Kenya, and is our lead faculty on governance and human resource. And you know, as we see, a whole lot of issues are related to the staff we are dealing with and related to the board. So Pauline, you are welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Steve. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Without taking too much time, we will go straight to the conversation we have. As we know, the story has long been told. COVID-19 crisis has disrupted our businesses. Many people have been affected. Health emergencies have been declared. It has affected our staff. It has affected our clients. It has affected our institutions. Most of the MFIs open like clock. We know we open at 8 o'clock, we close at 5 o'clock, but now we have shut down for 2 months and we are still not sure. And we are now learning how to even go back to work. So what are the impacts of this? And to start this conversation this morning, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite Anne to talk to us. This year, 2020, has been an amazing year. How have MFIs across Africa been able to manage risk arising from COVID-19? Over to you, Anne, our expert in risk. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Steve, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss matters COVID-19 as relates to the microfinance industry. Obviously, this is something that is unprecedented. Nobody would have planned or known that this is something that would have happened. But that is precisely why risk management is important. and being able to have risk management plans, business continuity, disaster recovery plans before the eventualities that happen. Many of things are not foreseen, and a pandemic such as the one we are having is such as one. So I would say that a lot of microfinance have been grappling in the dark without knowing what to do. Many were caught, of course, by surprise, and the government, many governments have enforced a lockdown, and knowing that microfinance is a high-touch business, it becomes then very tricky on how do you conduct your business? How are you going to manage? So a lot of the MFIs that have been able to have a semblance of managing these are those that would have already prepared a business continuity plan and have known how to manage disasters such as this one. Now, what do we mean by a business continuity plan? This is like the way the government says that there is a state of emergency and activates a plan during that time. And so we, as microfinance practitioners, would need to have a situation where you come by creating a committee that would manage the process of being able to return the business to normalcy. We don't know what the new normal will be. There might be a different normal from the one that we are expecting. But at the very least, we would expect that there would be a crisis management team who would be a caretaker committee to caretake the business during this time of disruption. Such a committee would have a leader, usually the CEO or the person who is the MD in the organization, who would lead and have a plan activated so that everybody looks up to them, to that plan, and in a way that is guided and consistent and does not communicate any confusion. The worst thing that you can have in a situation like this is confusion. The other person that would be important is a business continuity coordinator. This is somebody who would ordinarily be either an IT specialist or a logistics specialist, somebody who would be able to direct on what the alternatives are. Obviously, you ought to have created what the alternatives would be, looked at scenarios, tried to create a semblance of a scenario so that when a situation unfolds of a disaster, whatever type of disaster, there is known what alternatives can manage. And for many MFIs, the way to go is really looking at technology. How can you employ technology? And that may be the reason why you may want somebody who's very good in technology to be able to guide that, that communication or that plan together with the CEO, who would be the leader for this crisis management team. Another key personnel is an external communications person. If there's one thing that needs to be consistent, it's communication, both internally and externally. There will be staff who will be looking to you or looking to the leaders, wanting guidance to know where to go. The worst that you can do is not communicate. There will be external stakeholders. There'll be the funders, the shareholders, regulator, all needing to know what are you doing? What are you going to do about the situation? So it would help in the initial planning process to create some kind of frequency asked questions listing on what are some of those things that can be asked, and so that there is a guide for solutions. And beyond that, having a call center where you have clients or staff calling and be able to know what to do or how to manage. The other thing is the operations leader. Obviously, with microfinance being high touch, you cannot lose touch of your clients. You must keep in touch with your clients. Yes, they're in groups. Yes, they're in the rural places, but there has to be some alternative or way in which to manage. Dr. Steve, you have a slide that I gave, which is sort of like an overall communication of what that would mean. If you're able to present that slide, it would help just to give some discussion.
Let me share that.
If you're able to share it, that would help. And it gives, it's a general slide when you're talking about no, the slide should come somewhere ahead. Yes, it's a picture that sort of gives a pictorial of how the business continuity plan works. Okay. Well, nonetheless, the slide that we were talking about, or the pictorial that we wanted to show, is one where you would have a situation where you have the plan, you assess what would be the best way in which to manage in light of the parameters that are given of that crisis, the particular crisis, and then be able to have the team. Yes, that is the one. So you have a declaration of a crisis. And once that crisis is declared, you now have the response plan coming in. And the first part is really to do a planning and understand what will happen. What are the sites that the people need to be at? If your staff are in rural places, do they live there, or do they need to perhaps relocate to that location? Underlying all this is the safety of your human resource. You do not want to expose them to any danger. The other thing is to be able to have constant meetings and constant communications so that you're able to direct the people and manage, have a nerve center, and be able to deal with each situation as it comes along. I'm sure my colleagues will be able to talk into the components of how that would look like for a microfinance, but this is just the overall of the crisis management plan that we'll be talking about in terms of business continuity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Han. Now to Kadri, are there opportunities in this for financial inclusion sector?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Steve. And I mean, we all know when there is a challenge, there is always opportunity. The challenges are forcing us to think outside the box. The challenges are forcing us to do things creatively, challenge our norms. And what we're facing now is definitely one of those opportunities. I'd like to maybe flash back a little bit and talk about the digital transformation of microfinance institutions, which is something that I have interest in and maybe a few contributions to share in this discussion about. Probably 5, maybe 10 years ago, the transformation of microfinance institutions to the digital world has been on the table. This is not new. But probably the COVID situation or the challenge that we're facing now is putting this higher on the table or higher on the priority list, because there are opportunities there that if microfinance institutions are not taken seriously, we may lose. Again, 5, 10 years back, the discussion was very, I would say, actively engaging about the digitalization of microfinance institution as an opportunity. And actually, in some studies, they said if microfinance institutions are not adapting to the technology or engaging actively with the technology, they may perish. The McKinsey Institute actually specifically issued a study probably 2 years ago. I read it. It talks about specifically that by the year 2025, if microfinance institutions are not adapting or transforming to the digital world, they may lose anything between 20 to 70% of their profit, which is quite significant considering that we're talking about 5 years, or back then it was maybe 7 or 10 years only. Losing this much of profit is quite significant. So I'm talking here about like a little bit of history, even before COVID. So imagine how this will look like in the COVID world, and with the self-isolation and with the quarantines and with the considering the way we handle the microfinance clients, it's definitely much more aggressive. Now, why we're doing this? I mean, they are talking about it's more engaging with the clients digitally. Everybody, like Africa now, have lots of available technology. The cell phones and the networks are quite available. So why we are not using it? It's more convenient for the people. It's more adaptive. It's more flexible. You can change the products and the payment terms the way you want, or the way the clients want easily. It's huge efficiency for the organization. And if you think about the application of those tools, or application of the available tools from the beginning, from acquiring clients, how you are communicating with potential clients through SMSs or apps or whatsoever, how we are gonna train them through the available technology, not in meetings that they have to travel to, and reduce the transaction cost to the people when they apply for the loan by using the technology. Maybe even processing the loans and applying certain metrics approach in order to give the people that to issue the product digitally. Even, I mean, you know, in Kenya and in most of the African countries, even the digital payment now is very common, the M-Pesa and the alternatives. So even like our traditional approach of handling cash, the digital world, or the transformation to the digital world is challenging this already. Renewing loans, and I can go through a huge matrix of opportunities that can help microfinance institutions become more efficient and spread the world better with the people, get feedback and adjust the products. If they detect, as we are teaching in Sam's classes, the financial statements and the analysis of the financial statements, and we say these are your eye and ears. This is the window that you see what's happening in the organization. And so if senior management see indicators of things are drifting, you jump in the digital tools and connect with the clients and see what's happening exactly and why, and adjust quickly, which is probably 20 times more efficient, more effective than our traditional approaches. So in a nutshell, the answer to your question, are there opportunities? Yes, absolutely. And it was there, but maybe we were not taking it seriously because we were comfortable with what we know and what we used to do. Now COVID is pushing us further and saying, hey, I mean, you have to move on. You have to take this seriously. I mean, a small example, I mean, all of us plus 128 colleagues and practitioners are on this call using the digital tools. I mean, we didn't need to travel to Mombasa to have a conference in order to talk about this. We don't need to be physically there to have this discussion. I mean, the world is changing, and I think microfinance institutions have strong motivation now to apply or to use these opportunities for their survival, and actually for better future, for expansion, for expanding their outreach. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kadri. And Kadri has brought in an important aspect. For 15 consecutive years, we have always met in Mombasa in the first 2 weeks of September to hold this annual School of African Microfinance. COVID has dropped a new kettle of fish in our hand. This year, we shall be taking this program online, because the safety of our participants is of utmost importance to us. We shall be discussing this as we close. Many of our participants are indicating that they want to ask questions. You can type your questions in the chat box, and at the end of this session, we will give you opportunity to raise 1 or 2 questions, and by that time, we will expect you to just raise your hand so that we recognize you. But for now, we will take our panel members to talk to us. Business spaces and offices are places of footprint. And these are the places that are most affected. Our staff are affected, and definitely human resource is a very important asset of any business. And I'm going to Pauline now. Do you notice any trend in how our MFIs can manage their talents in these trying times? Do you anticipate any governance challenges at the board level? Pauline, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Steve.
Okay.
Thank you. It's true, and can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I think the insights you're getting from my colleagues are quite important, but the question I want us to really focus is how do we recover our business? And I want to just start by saying that our employees will be a very critical component in keeping the MFIs business and operations afloat. Staff management now more than ever will require very sober mind in making decisions affecting them. Because remember, they are also quite uncertain of what is happening and they are known in the business. So it is very important to make sure that whatever decisions we make for the staff really put in consideration the environment in which they are, and because they can also abandon you in the process as a business. So staff again must also feel very assured, supported, valued, and involved for them to be effective to work for our microfinance institutions and to be able to deliver on the business to help maintain, recover, and sustain under the circumstance. We are currently under a situation that is still very unknown. We don't even know how far this situation is going. So we have to really consider where we are, where we want to be, and where we'll eventually end. And staff will be very critical. One critical action for me, action for microfinance would also be to reassess the human capital skills and talents. Because remember, we are in an unknown, what we are now calling the normal. We don't know how this normal will go, as Anne and Aria mentioned. And for us to be able to understand this normal, it's also important to understand the capacity of the staff that we have, and also the talent diversity. We may need to do restructuring of the staff alongside the operations and the opportunities that are there for the business. One thing that I've always found very effective in staff issues and a situation like this is involving everyone in the institution. Because remember, as far as the business is concerned, everybody is a stakeholder and everybody is concerned about the sustainability of the business and the situation in which you have been put in by this COVID pandemic. So as we assess the talents of the employees, it's also important to identify a small team that is representing all levels, departments, sections of the business, so that they can kind of be meeting regularly as a technical staff, technical committee, and evaluating on a continuous basis the situation, making recommendations, and giving feedback for action to management. The reason I've seen this work well is because, remember, we are saying that everyone is a stakeholder here. And for microfinance to survive through this situation, staff are very critical. And our nature of business is in a way that we have to deal with a relationship kind of business approach. So if staff are made to feel that they are part of the process, and if we have this kind of representation, then we are likely to get a very good buy-in and ownership by all the staff, because they'll feel represented in the decisions that are being made. It's also good to keep staff involved and updated on major decisions, because sometimes when there's an uncertainty, we create a vacuum, and you know the nature of grapevine can do a lot of harm to business. So instead of having living vacuums within the communication, like Anne and Aria mentioned, it is very good to have a very good decision making that is involving staff and being updated, particularly on decisions that are affecting them. And this assures the business, or will help our business to have ownership from the part of the staff. I want to reiterate that your employee may also be having very good ideas, because we have very skilled young teams that are working for microfinance. And those that have gotten a lot of experience over the years, they could also be having very good ideas. And when they give the ideas for survival of the business, they also feel that they own the process and they appreciate it and they'll give their best. Remember, we are all in this, all of us together, and the survival of the business is very critical for everyone. I also want to mention that the role of board at this point on human resource is to provide a point of reference for staff. And the board has a very critical role in giving assurance to the staff for the business. Now, coming to your second question, Dr. Steve, on the anticipated challenges that the board may get, is yes, there will be challenges. And like my earlier colleagues have mentioned, that situation in which we are now calls for a very proactive, constant assessment and timely decision in making decisions and taking whatever actions that we are taking to save our situations, and also to help adapt to the current normal. The current normal that affects our businesses, the social distancing, and all those other issues that we have within the current situation. Board have a very critical role in aiding management at this particular time with new strategies to keep business afloat and to be proactive, proactively take care of the shareholders' value, because that's one of their key mandates as a board. And that will be a big challenge if it's not very well addressed. It will also be not business as usual for microfinance. And businesses that will survive will be for those who take urgent and strategic conscious decisions to help our businesses survive. And with this COVID disruption, again, we need to reassess our nature of operation, our processes, our departmental input, our value chains within our businesses. It's very, very important. There will also be urgent need to review our business situation. How much have we been affected? How much have we been able to recover our loans? How much are staff not being able to operate? And remember, most of the microfinance institutions, specifically working with the groups, they do cross-city movements. So we may need to say, if you are within, like in Nairobi, where we have a lockdown, and the staff was moving out of Nairobi, then there will be urgent need to make decisions on who will manage those other areas that were being managed by people in Nairobi who cannot move out of Nairobi. That's why I'm saying there will be very important. It will be very important to make very constant decisions that are very well coordinated by the executive and the board strategically. And finally, I also want to say that boards will have to strategically identify capital resource. It will be a big challenge for business because we have lost business opportunity for 2 months. So I'm sure we will be requiring additional capital, and we need to source for appropriate sources to help bridge the gap of the resources that we may have lost during these 2 months where we have gone through a lot of confusion, to be able to catch up with our business. And remember, we are saying this business must survive. I'm not sure whether there's anyone of us who is on the call today who want to see their business go down. We all want to see our businesses survive. And that is why it is very, very critical to analyze all aspects that affect the staff and all the processes. And this role is very critical, run by the board. I also want to mention that as I conclude that the board may also want to consider through the executive opportunities that are available by either governments or development partners who are availing credit guarantee funds, which can also help the business to survive, and other sources of affordable sources of finance that can be able to bridge the gap as we adjust ourselves with the new normal, which we don't know how normal and how long it will remain. Thank you. Back to you, Dr. Steve.
Thank you very much, Pauline. This is very insightful. I share the board of directors of a microfinance bank. And in December last year, when I was approving the budget for 2020, face mask was not part of it. Sanitizer was not part of it. And those are major cost head this year. We have gone into 2020. Many loans will go bad. Cost will continue to go up. We would like Rose now to lead us in this conversation. What can our MFIs and MFB do to manage this risk of loan going bad, our cost going up, and what can we do differently to be able to make our institutions to survive as Pauline has advised us? Over to you, Rose.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Steve. I hope you can put my slides, please.
Good, yes.
Yes, many loans will go bad, no doubt about it. Talking to the people in the sector, it is very clear that loans are going bad by the day. One institution I talked to yesterday was indicating that they have lost 40% of their loans in the last 2 months. So definitely we have an issue in terms of this. And you know, the loan portfolio is the income generating assets that microfinance institutions rely on. And so definitely, it is going to be a big issue as we go on. Please put it so that we can go on together. Go ahead, please. Steve, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, yes. Yes. So, of course, many institutions right now, go back, please. Many institutions have very few new loans going on. There is, of course, very high client exit and dormancy and loss of jobs for those ones dealing with salaried clients, little or no disbursements. And of course, clients also taking advantage, like in my country where there's now restricted listing in the CLB, clients are taking advantage, and this has really affected the fintechs, those people who led through the digital platforms. Poor repayments and of course collection models that are not very conducive for a time like now, especially those ones who are using the group methodology. And then of course, the increase in operating costs are major. Calls have to be made more than ever before, bulk SMSs, visits, and sometimes visits in teams. So definitely a lot of money is going to pay costs. And then of course, increase in fraud, we are starting to see it. Many institutions had moved away from the system of collecting money in cash, but definitely in this pandemic, you cannot make very big choices. You may have to go for cash. And so definitely there are instances of fraud. And so what can institutions do? The loans are going bad. What can the institutions do? I would suggest some suggestions and hearing from the field in the short run is that, like Anne said, let's keep open communication. Let's go to the next slide, please. Let's keep our communications open. And then, of course, the institutions that have built client-institution relationship with clients are finding it an easy way to go, even in institutions where a loan officer or a branch manager has been good in terms of creating client relationship. We see a lot of good coming out of there. People are paying loans not because of anything else other than to keep that relationship as well. In the short run, also, of course, we want to keep up with loan collection. This is where we allow partial payments. We do cash collections. We have very few options. And more important, keep the loans going. For the loan payers, those people who are paying, there are some sectors which are not affected. In my country, the agricultural sector is not affected because it was declared to be one of the essential sectors. And so we need to continue to fund good clients so that it can motivate others to keep up. And then, of course, those ones who are using the digital platforms, for us, we have the M-Pesa pay bill. Institutions that are on this platform needs to enter if you have that opportunity. But as Pauline and even Anne had indicated, is that frequent reports on how you are doing. So if you can have daily collections, and those reports are able to motivate the staff on the ground. So let them know what is happening every day so that they can be able to look forward to tomorrow and do even a better job. And so it is important that we frequently report back on how we are collecting. And then, of course, the last one on this one in the short term is to build your staff confidence and keep staff informed. Let them not hear it from the grapevine. Let the CEO, let the head of business, let them communicate to staff directly. Let them tell them what is happening, what actions are being taken, so that they can also relay the same to the clients. But in the long term, in the medium and long term, the last one, Steve, in the medium term and long term, it's important that we now start thinking of things like loan restructuring. I know many microfinance institutions and even financial institutions don't want to hear this happen, but definitely there will be need to start restructuring our loans, probably increasing the period so that we can reduce the installments that are being paid just to keep those loans going. And then of course, refinancing, it's also a consideration. We can also consider suspending interest and commission payments so that we can keep our clients, like, you know, also going. And then of course, now thinking of moving to the individual business model that many institutions fear. I don't think we have a choice. Going forward, we must start learning how to work with individual clients. Much as we may continue with groups, maybe smaller size groups, we must open ourselves to the individual business model. And then of course, in the extreme circumstances, we may reach a point, and maybe this would be an area of discussion where we may want to pardon loans. Because if clients can't pay, especially the sectors that have been overly and really critically hurt, it is areas for discussions that we'll be discussing later. And then of course, we have the digital products and targeting different sectors. If you've not thought about agriculture, this is the time maybe to think about it. You have seen the sectors that have continued to move on. Those are sectors that you need to think about. And then also, of course, let's think savings mobilization, insurance products for our vulnerable clients. And so I would say there will be a lot of discussions around these areas, and I'm hoping that the practitioners in the house are starting to see where they need to start thinking and thinking very seriously. But that is what Dr. Steve, I would want to say for now. To minimize risks in the short term, in the long term, we need to have a concerted effort, the staff and the managers working together, and of course the board. Thank you very much, Dr. Steve.
Thank you very much, Rose, for that comment, for that insightful contribution. You see that things are changing now. In the high and low, we said, and we taught our participants that restructuring was a recipe for disaster. Now COVID has met us, restructuring has come to the table. You just need to restructure your loans. Immaculate from Uganda is asking questions on digital finance. And I will go back to Kadri. Technology and digital finance will play a major role. And now people in Africa in particular, we are concerned about cost, we are concerned about access. And as things are going now, what are the major takeaways you have for us, especially? Should we continue to be shy with technology, or should we embrace technology? And how do we invest in technology in this climate? Kadri, over to you, sir. Kadri, you've been on. Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
You muted me.
Sorry about that, yeah.
You are the boss. You are in charge. You muted me. Yeah. Probably, as I mentioned earlier, the discussion about digitalization isn't new, isn't about COVID. COVID is pushing us fast and furious to take serious steps towards digitalization. And as I was listening to Rose and Pauline, I mean, definitely there is sense there. I mean, like we are leading to the same point. But let me start cushioning ourselves here a little bit. There is no one solution or one size fits all. Every country is different. The availability of tools and technology and cost is different. The preparedness of the organizations is different. The type of clients that you are dealing with and their I would say, preparedness for adapting or absorbing technology is different. So we really, there is no one sheet that we can apply that will fit everybody. There is no vaccine for COVID-19 microfinance that will cure all the microfinance institutions. It's not going to happen. But we just have to be careful and pick what is suitable for us and take the right steps on the right time. Another I would say assumption that I'd like to highlight here. Almost every time I visit clients or go to countries, I question my assumptions about the availability of digital tools. Frankly, I mean, most of African countries are far more advanced than Europe and North America, to be fair with you, in terms of affordability of the digital technology, the cell phones, and the availability of tools, because they don't have, like many African countries, don't have the same infrastructure in North America and with the Visa cards and this stuff. So the companies or the people are so creative in finding alternatives. Our traditional savings and savings mobilization, the group savings and lending, the VSLA, which is called in some countries VSLA, this model where people sit and they have box with 3 locks and 3 keys and they put the cash in. I mean, I visited group once and not long ago, and it's like a thing of the past. People are using their cell phones to save. I mean, this tool that we invented a few years back, long ago actually, and we kept advancing and bragging about it. It's been the thing of the history. They use the box to put the files. People are saving using the cell phones. So let us not underestimate what is available out there. For me, for example, the affordability of buying a smartphone was a big thing. And smartphones are expensive, right? But what I realized is many people, they don't have mobile phone, they don't have a smartphone, they have SIM cards they put in their wallet. And then they go to the rural trader and they go to a friend or someone else and still put the SIM card in the phone, and then they do whatever transactions they want and then take it back and put it in the wallet. They don't even own a phone. Again, these are assumptions that we make, and frankly, when you go to the field, you just debunk it totally with the creativity and what the people are doing. Electricity was a big thing for me at some point of time, and then I found solar panels everywhere, and people just charge their phones and they pay a few shillings here and there. And so, in conclusion, countries are different, areas are different, people are different, microfinance institutions are it's different. But what we all agree on is that we need to start seriously about digitalizing. How?
Thank you, Kadri. Thank you so much.
Okay.
No, you will continue. Olubode Elizabeth and Mr. Jegede, the MD of Abacus, you are raising up your hand. We will come back to you. Kadri, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Just few words. I mean, just think about this framework. You divide the operations into maybe 5 stages, and you say, I acquire the customers this way, and then the technology can help me acquire the customers this other way. The application process is another stage. Now I am doing the application this way. People come and fill the thing and whatever, and then they sign it, and okay, this is the traditional way. The digital world can help me acquire or do the application this way. And there is plenty of frameworks in the market. I can email you one, Dr. Steve, and you share it with the participants later. But give some ideas on how this can be done. I disburse the loan this way, which is maybe the cash, the ATM, whatever. In the digital world, I can do the mobile wallet, for example. In the collection, I'm doing it this way. Now with the digital world, I can. And then you will have a huge list in consultations with your staff and the clients on what options do you have. You don't have to do all. I mean, just pick few easy hanging fruits in order to move forward. It was just said now a few minutes ago by Rose that allowing daily collection. Well, yes, But if we are doing it the traditional way with self-isolation and quarantine and whatsoever, well, daily and the transaction cost, daily collection doesn't make sense. But imagine if you are paying with M-Pesa or another digital tool, you can actually pay twice a day if you want, with like no effort at all or very little effort. So it's just an opportunity that I flagged from the previous discussion. So anyways, this is the conclusion, divided into 5 stages: the acquiring customers, the approval process, the disbursement of the loan, the collection of the loan, and the ongoing engagement with the customers, and identify few tools here and there or few ideas here and there, and just put an easy track, low-hanging fruits that can get you on the right way, on the right track. Thanks, Dr. Steve.
Thank you, Kadri. Before you go, Kadri, a number of participants are raising this question. How can digitalization help group lending? Is it applicable to group lending or only individual lending? Can you just give us your thought on that? Yes.
You see, I mean, it's, again, I mean, there is no one solution fits all, but I just mentioned in group savings and lending scheme that I was involved in recently, they are using phones, not the traditional box, for example. I think there is an opportunity there to have a key person, or you have a number of, I would say, hubs within the groups that can disperse to using digital tools and collect from using digital tools. In group lending as well, you have a big component of training. I mean, the training can be done digitally to some extent. It's not going to be the same. People will have to adjust, but it is possible. But definitely, individual lending is straightforward. Group lending will need some adjustment.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And the questions are coming, and they are becoming very interesting. A lot of people have said that, I'm coming back to you now, Anne. A lot of people have said that most important thing for businesses during this pandemic is to survive. Then later we can focus on profit. What strategies do you think we need to use to survive? And to Pauline, people are worried. Staff are losing their job. Some of our participants are telling us that their staff have tested positive to COVID. And then health issues are coming on board. What can our institutions do? One, to cope with this emergency of staff getting tested positive, or clients getting tested positive and we're losing our money. Should we cut costs? Should we reduce staff? How do we proceed from where? We start with Anne. Then we come to Pauline. Yes. Anne, please go ahead. Yes. I'm sorry. You are moved. Let me come back. Yes, Anne, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Steve, for that question. It's true that these are survival times for a lot of microfinance. I think one of the key strategies that a microfinance needs to do, beyond what my colleagues have mentioned, is to ensure that they have liquidity. Cash is king. Yes, communication needs to happen. You need to communicate to external stakeholders. You need to communicate to internal persons. Staff need to know what is right to do. Having a call center, people knowing and having clarity of the direction so that they are able to keep informed and know what is required. But beyond that, looking at the liquidity process, if you're not collecting from customers, you will very quickly find yourself in a place where cash becomes a problem. And you may not be able to service your loans. For many microfinance that are not deposit taking, you have funders, you have lenders who have given you funds, and there are covenants that you have with those funders. You need to go back to those funders and have a discussion, a negotiation where you can get some waivers for covenants. Get a review done, and because it's the whole world that's facing this pandemic, I'm sure that would be reasonable to ask. Negotiate on new terms. See how you can get extensions. If you were to pay some principal funds, look for moratoriums. Can they extend some moratorium on principal payments? Can you get moratorium also on interest payments? The same way you would restructure to your clients is the same way you would want to seek your funders to be able to help you manage your liquidity. As far as possible, also talk to your suppliers. There are creditors that are not loan creditors. Perhaps you have a courier service that you work with. Look at how you can cut the costs. You probably don't need them as much as you have been using. And so look at ways in which you can keep liquidity within the firm. Now, you may ask yourself about cutting staff costs, and I know Pauline will talk about that, but a microfinance business being one that is on the ground, as far as possible, we would have to try and avoid that, because you do not want to create a situation of fraud happening at the front line. However, the executive management in an organization may decide that in order to show solidarity, they could want to take a pay cut, and that can start right from the very start. But let that be more as a last option. If you have the shareholders, social investors who probably have come into your organization, see how in the long run they can rebuild your equity. You may want to call on them to put back some funds through equity or a soft loan, subordinated debt, so that the balance sheet is strengthened, and to be able to attract other funders in future, because you need this business to go on post this period. If you have lost a large part of your asset book, it means that your business has gone down. And so you'd want to renegotiate and talk to your shareholders, see how they can provide that additional support on their end. Look out for technical assistance from social investors and those who are able to provide that, so that you can get the business back to the new normal that you'd get into. So thank you for that question.
Thank you very much, Dan. Over to you, Pauline. Must we cut cost? Must we cut staff salary? How do we still survive in this situation?
She's muted.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Steve. I want to look into that question in two aspects. And the first aspect I want to look at it is, I would like first of all to say that for many businesses, the very easy option is often to reduce staff. It's very easy because you are looking at the end month, the bill, and you think that is the way to reduce the cost. But I want to caution that reducing staff is a very sensitive decision that needs to be very carefully assessed. It is likely to create a very negative impact, not only to the affected staff, but also to our customers. Because remember, the nature of microfinance is one that customers are part of the system of the microfinance, and they may feel like that is not the right decision. And in any case, when you release a staff, that staff is the one who knows where the customers were. So before you even release that staff, you need to know how the customer will be reached so that there will be business continuity. The other thing is that remember that MFI business is relationship-based. So as much as possible, keep the staff, at least to keep the goodwill within the existing staff, because once staff realize that some people are leaving, they all start looking for greener pastures and plan to leave, which now again become very negative to the business. The other thing is that there may be need to do fundamental changes and restructuring in the business approach to manage costs, specifically on underlying assumptions like I had earlier mentioned on operational planning and details that will bring down the cost. Planning and readjusting operations in the field can easily address the issue of cost, particularly with this situation in which we are and which are likely to affect the operations a lot. If we must reduce staff also, I want to caution that we have to be very careful of the legal implication, our obligation, particularly as a board and the executive, because it is very important to manage the staff if we also have to manage our delinquencies and also redundancy that may come along. Also, I want to mention that we also must keep our regulation in place so that business can continue. But the other thing I wanted to mention in terms of managing our costs, you cannot manage costs if you don't have effective reporting. Microfinance require very effective reporting because it's only by managing your reports. Anne has mentioned about the financials, but reporting is very, very critical because it makes you understand where the cost centers are not managing themselves properly, how efficient this is. And in addressing this, I want to kind of answer a question from David Kitusa, who is asking the critical reports that the board should demand and which will help in managing the cost of the MFI. One very important report is the active portfolio, because we must keep on tracking how our portfolio is moving. And I want to just quickly share an example of a microfinance that came to me asking that we want to know where we can borrow money. The active registered, the registered members of this microfinance is 1,000. The ones with outstanding loans are 300. The active members are 80, and they want to borrow our own facility so that they can keep the business going. I would want you to consider what kind of advice you give to such a microfinance. So the other very important report is on our own portfolio. How many loans are active? How many are inactive? How many members are active? How many are inactive? We also need to know the portfolio at risk, which is very, very critical in managing our business and keeping our business afloat. And these, if we are able to tell, then we are able to tell where we are going to reduce the cost. There's also the aspect of performance indicators. We need to know our cost indicators. We need to know our productivity indicators. We need also to know our efficiency and effectiveness indicators, in addition to sufficiency indicators, so that we know how business is moving before we even think about where are we going to cut costs. These are the reports that will help us decide and on how to manage our costs. But one very important thing is to manage our operational costs. Microfinance, to a great extent, can do a lot in managing their costs in terms of how they plan their operations before thinking about cutting the staff. And I want to, reducing the staff. I want to finish by only saying that the effective of the board committees here will also be very, very important, because it's the board that will direct the strategies that the business will take, the microfinance business will take. It will provide the strategy. It will also provide the guide and the plan. Now, these committees of the board have now than ever have to be very, very effective in their respective dockets to make sure that they are feeding into the overall strategy of the business to be able to give management good direction. What I'm emphasizing is the responsibility of cutting costs is now not just on the management. The board should also sit in and be involved and provide leadership in this decision making. Thank you. Back to you, Dr. Steve.
Thank you very much, Pauline. We have barely 2 minutes to go, but we will plead with your time. We plead for more time to just spend additional 5 minutes so that we can attend to very pressing questions, especially our colleagues that are raising up hands. Yes, we look at finally the question from this side before we throw it to the floor. A lot of microfinance institutions in Liberia and Sierra Leone survived Ebola crisis. What lessons can we learn from them to thrive post-COVID-19? I think, Kadri, you work in the conflict region, in crisis region, in your other assignment. Can you share with us? I know you have worked in Djibouti, in Somalia, in those places. Yes, okay. Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kadri. Yes.
Thank you so much. Time-wise, I don't think we have a lot. But there are a number of questions that came to me. I wrote my email address there. So either you email me directly and I give you the answer, or through Dr. Steve, any approach will work. Again, the time is very limited. Now, with the Ebola crisis, one, we need to keep in mind that the Ebola crisis was in 2013. We are now in 2020. There is lots happened in the digital world in 7 years. The world changed maybe 3 times since. So what is available to us now is much more handy and easier than what was available during the Ebola crisis in West Africa in 2013. Second, there are a number of studies conducted on this, and the conclusions were quite interesting. I would share one the study done on an microfinance institution who had actually to suspend the operations in the branches that they were located in places that were highly infected. So they just decided to pull staff and suspend all operations and forget everything. Now, surprisingly, when they went back, when they reopened and re-engaged with the clients, actually people paid back. Now, how did they do this? Because when they pulled out, they didn't pull out completely. They kept engaging on the social side with the people. They kept connecting with the people using digital means, asking about their well-being, their mental health, ask them about how can they help. So the organization maintained social presence with the people. So when they went back and reinstated the loans, the people didn't forget about them. The people were grateful for the human side that the organization showed. The organization engaged with the people with a human length that the people appreciated. That's why they reconnected. They lost a few loans, obviously, but I mean, the shocking result was that because they didn't really dump the people totally, they engaged, when they re-engaged, people paid back. I'll stop here considering the time. And again, I'm sure after this engaging discussion with 209 people, we will have, I would say, an opportunity to exchange emails and share more experiences in the coming few days. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kadri, for that. I also work extensively in Sierra Leone and Liberia post-Ebola. And one of the key things that made the institution, microfinance institutions, to endear themselves to their client was that during the crisis, they concentrated on building the capacity of their client. They did not leave their clients alone, as Kadri has pointed out. They supported them with capacity building, they encouraged them, they motivated them. Then the first thing, as Han pointed out, was restructuring. The loans were restructured. Interest computation was stopped because you cannot continue to count interest on somebody that is on sick bed. Then you need to care for your staff, because when they see you as a responsible corporate citizen, then they will sympathize with you. But when they see you as being only interested in your money, then they will not sympathize with you. So we need to look at all those ones. Before we go, we will quickly take a few questions from our participant. Elizabeth, I could see you've been raising up your hand. Jegede, you've been raising up your hand. I will lower your hand now and I will unmute you to quickly raise your question so that we address that. Elizabeth, over to you. I cannot see you again. Are you there? Then we go to Mr. Jegede, the MD of Abucorps. Yes, maybe your question has been addressed. Then, by the announcement side, you are aware that the School of African Microfinance is always holding in September. This year, we are going to be running the program online. We shall be sharing thoughts with you and how to register and the participation processes. Then all the questions that we have asked, we are going to harvest the questions. The Secretariat will provide the answers. Our faculty members will give us the answers to the questions, and we are going to share all the thoughts with you as we continue to prepare. And we thank you so much for all the contributions. We have already run short of the time. We thank our technical team, Mata and Nusha, they are leading us from behind. From our teams in Kenya and in Nigeria, Akim, Abdul, Titus, Yakibia, Uche, and Gilda. We thank all of you for what you have been able to do to make sure that we have a seamless class of over 200 people. Then please let us send in our questions. We will harvest the questions. We will share it with our faculty members. We will not leave. The team will not leave. The faculty members may leave, but the team will still be online to harvest your questions so that we can provide insightful answers for you as you continue your business. Thank you once again for creating time to be with us, and we appreciate your time, and we shall be keeping you posted of all other activities that we have lined up in the School of African Microfinance. But note, this year we will not be physically there in Mombasa, but the program is going to run in September as we have listed out. Watch out for the announcement. Thank you very much, and good morning once again. To our panelists, we are very grateful. Kadri, you are just waking up. The day is still young. Thank you very much. Anne, Rose, and Pauline, we are very grateful. We do not take it for granted. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day. Have a wonderful day ahead.